Chevra, good chodesh. It's so late, let's get to it. I want to dedicate today's shiur specifically L'ilui Nishmas Rav Yechiel Tzvi ben Reb Shimon Aryeh Leib. That's Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein, who was a yid that came into the world and decided, I got to bring a lot of light. And he did a lot of amazing, tremendous things that have a lot of peros, a lot of fruit. Ten Nishmas Tzura B'Tzura Chaim, go mala. And Bezrat Hashem, we should all connect to that light. The month of Adar is sponsored by the Aron family, L'ilui Nishmas Levi ben Yosef, by the Silvers, L'ilui Nishmas Bas Yefega Bas Yisrael. The month of Adar is also sponsored by Raziel and Leah Hershkowitz in memory of Yeshaya Shalom ben Yitzchak Isaac. Who's that?
A good friend of mine. His first year site's coming up.
By the Finns, by Ayala and Johnny Finn, L'ilui Nishmas Levi Yitzchak ben Yerucham Chanan Zalman. And for a shmira for all our tzaddikim, our chayalim HaKadoshim, and the refuah shlema for all of them. Amongst them, David Netanel ben Ayala Ahuva, Tov Shmuel ben Avi Anava, Avram Yaakov ben Dvorav Fega b'toch Shar Cholei Yisrael. The week is sponsored by Sarah and Yeshua Am in memory of your grandmothers, Charna Bas Yaakov and Moshe Alevi, Esther Bas Rufal, and Taiba Zelda Bas Zev. Today, we have one of my favorite pieces of Reb Shlomo in Parshas Terumah. This is something that I think many chevra that at times may feel very small can feel very right, can feel very special, can feel very connected. As you know, chevra, when it comes to Parshas Terumah and Tetzaveh, when we get into the details of both the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan, as well as next Shabbos with the begadim, with the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, first of all, it's filled with remazim to Purim. It's unbelievable. It's filled with remazim to Chodesh Adar, especially Tetzaveh, with the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, which we'll get to hopefully next week. Parshas Terumah, we know that when it comes to the measurements, there's so many measurements. It's not a fun week for Shnai Mikra Echad Targum. Last week also, Mishpat and Terumah Tetzaveh. It's not like it's avoida Shnai Mikra Echad Targum. It's not the smoothest ride, but it gets through us. We don't get through any of it. It gets through us. But everyone notices that all the measurements, kimat all of them, are always these broken numbers, all these chatzaim, all these halves. Not just that. We have a concept of kol nediv lev yevi'eha. Kol nediv lev, nedivus lev. Who was the one to bring something to the Beis HaMikdash? This criteria of nediv lev. I saw a void this week. Everyone knows a famous void. Everyone knows it says ve'ikchu li truma. What should have it said? Ve'yitnu li truma. Pshat. Ve'yitnu. That's another void. But ve'yitnu li truma. It seems like that's what it should have said. The void is, and actually someone called me recently and asked me to give them eitzas in fundraising. I said, I'm not a good example. But I'll tell you what Rabbi Riskin told me when I first met him. When becoming the Rav here, he said, if you don't feel that you're actually giving a person an opportunity to give something, then you probably shouldn't do it. And that's a shift. And he's obviously... And he's obviously has been a gadol in that department. So the pasuk says, "V'yikchu li truma," that the lekicha should feel like it's netina, right? That's what it should feel. It should feel like a schus. That's the nediv leiv aspect. When we look at that, and now we have Reb Shlomo and his beautiful lashon. This is a short piece from February 1978. That Reb Shlomo gave over the secret of how you build the Beis HaMikdash, how you build Am Yisrael. Parshas Terumah. Ma hevdel ben or kadosh leben or shu lo kadosh? Pashut meod. What's the difference between a holy light and a not so holy light? It's a very simple difference. Damyenu sheyesh li kan orot psichedalim. Imagine I have these psychedelic lights. It means like in some sukkahs they put up some crazy, far out lights. Or gadol beyoter ba'olam shemehavhev kmo meshugan. This crazy light this artificial light is flashing all over the place, like crazy. Ve'az adam echad megia im panas katan, and then someone comes with a little flashlight. אני אומר לו, אתה משוגע? אני לא צריך את זה. What are you bringing your little flashlight here? I have such a crazy amount of light that's right in front of me. I don't need this.
A whole light show.
Yeah, I have a whole light show. You're coming with a flashlight? חברים, אם האור הגדול באמת קדוש, כשמישהו מגיע עם אור קטן, זה מוסיף כל כך הרבה. מכיוון שהאור הגדול גורם לכם להיות מודעים לדברים הקטנים. This sentence is dynamite. תרתי משמע. I'm going to read it again. Listen to the words here. חברים, אם האור הגדול באמת קדוש, if that crazy light show is really holy, then כשמישהו מגיע עם אור קטן, when someone shows up with a little light, זה מוסיף כל כך הרבה, it actually adds so much. Why? מכיוון שהאור הגדול, because the big light, what does it cause you to be aware of and to see? גורם לכם להיות מודעים לדברים הקטנים. Because real holy light, big light, causes you to be aware of the small things. You understand what he did over here?
Small light.
Anything. Anything.
Additional light helps with the larger light?
It's not about helping. It's not about, you know what, that flashlight,
Awareness.
that flashlight doesn't really, it doesn't lemaisa in this world add to the brightness of that crazy big psychedelic light that he's talking about. However, it adds so much to what light is all about, because light is there to raise awareness for all the small things. A simple thing. Obviously, when you build a shul, someone's going to come and drop some massive Amen Ken Yiratzon, some massive Amen Ken Yiratzon, Amen Ken Yiratzon, Amen Ken Yiratzon, Amen Rosh Chodesh, and Good Purim, Amen Ken Yiratzon, Amen Ken Yiratzon. Someone's going to come and drop down a Amen Ken Yiratzon. It's going to come bring down some massive gelt, right?
Amen.
And then you have a guy that lives here, or that doesn't live here, but he feels connected. She feels connected. If this is really a place of Kedusha, then the person that only has $18 to give, right after someone just dropped $360,000 on Ken Yiratzon to give, what's going to happen to that person that gave the $18?
Good.
What is it going to...
Insignificant.
Huh?
It's a feeling of insignificance.
Hafuch, meaning if it's a holy... Right. If it's not... They could feel very insignificant. What do I have to give?
Broke in.
Huh?
You're going to feel broke in.
Like, give it over.
Broke, but also broke in.
Yeah. You're laughing.
No, I'm
you know
saying
why
that-
you're laughing?
I'm laughing
because you have such a chiddush, and it's
That's why I'm laughing.
it's, so that it's the deepest. I know.
I'm saying that you're going to feel broke, that I'm not that, but I'm also broken. But
I'm
also
broke in. Yes, and that's what he's saying over here. But now, how do you know if a light is not holy? If there's a Rebbe, and the real Rebbes would never be like this, but if there's some kind of prestigious rabbi that he's, he needs some big bucks, and this happened with some of the Sfarim we put out. There were chevra that knew that the main sponsor would put down $10,000 and get the name and whatever it is. And then there were people that said, I want so badly to be part of this, but I don't have enough to get my, even like a quarter page in like the third page of dedications. So I hope whoever hears this is Michael me, but sometimes when the chevra that barely had anything to put in but wanted so bad l'shem being part of the sefer, they sometimes got the front page. That could get me into a lot of trouble right now, but it's in my last thought, because the real stuff in the world comes from one place, Nediv Lev, which is how the Parsha opens up with how you give to the Beis HaMikdash. A holy light makes you notice small light. And it makes your holy light that much more meaningful and deep. Yes, Lemaisa, will $18 add-on change on a mitzias level the needs of a shul on a practical level? Probably not. Will it change the needs of the shul on the most emesdika practical level, that the place should be built by Nedivus slave? 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Back inside. Ma hevdel ben kesef, we're like 5 lines in. Ma hevdel ben kesef kadosh, לבין כסף לא קדוש. Difference between holy money and unholy money. תארו לעצמכם שמיליונר אחד נותן $2 מיליון למשכן, ואז מוישלה הגנב נותן $0.25 אחד. Right? some millionaire gives $2 million to the Mishkan, and then Moshe the thief gives a quarter. So אני אגיד, אתה משוגע, יש לנו כבר $2 מיליון. What are you adding here? כי זה לא קדוש. אבל אם זה קדוש, אתה אומר, לא יאמן. $0.25 שלך זה הדבר הכי יקר שקיבלנו. This is the most precious thing we ever received. Now look how he ties, this is, you need to be a Talmid Chacham and you need to be creative to do the following. כאשר שלמה המלך בנה את בית המקדש, הוא שלח שליחים לאסוף כסף ותכשיטים לבית המקדש. שלמה המלך is building בית ראשון. He sends messengers, emissaries to collect money and תכשיטים. What's תכשיטים? For the base, adornments, for the base המקדש. השליחים חזרו עם זהב וכסף. Listen to this, this is amazing. The shluchim come back with gold and silver. אבל אז שאל המלך שלמה, איפה הפרוטות של העניים? But where are the pennies of the paupers? That's what he wanted to know. אז השליחים אמרו, and you could see all this in מלאכים א', השליחים אמרו, כשהעניים ראו שאנחנו אוספים זהב וכסף, הם התביישו לתת את הפרוטות שלהם. They were embarrassed to give their pennies. אז שלמה המלך אומר, אוקיי, בואו נעשה עוד פעם התרמה, תרומה רק של פרוטות. Now go out again, go on out another campaign, but this time the campaign is only penny campaign. Meaning, you're not going to go collect, but this time you're only collecting pennies.
So we should do another campaign for $18 each for each person?
Sure. And you're just, put yourself the one in charge to make that campaign happen. He's laughing, he doesn't know how it works here yet, he's Shona. Dov will talk to you after Shir, okay? Kulam yodim. Now look what he says here. שלושה קירות בבית המקדש נבנו מזהב ותכשיטים. There are 3 walls in the base of Mikdash that were built from the gold and the silver and all the jewelry. אבל קיר אחד נבנה בפרוטות. But there was one wall that was built from the pennies. הכותל המערבי. הכותל שלא ניתן להשמיד אותו, that wall that can never be destroyed, that was the one that was built from the pennies.
Wow.
Mic drop. Yeah.
Actually?
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, actually. Is Makula in there?
You think he made this stuff up?
I'm not the only one asking. I mean,
He says kulam.
No, no,
yodim.
no.
He could be
That's it.
speaking figuratively or literally.
Yeah. Huh?
He could be speaking figuratively or literally. That's what we're all waiting to hear.
I think we're just shocked.
Because you're
It's
right.
amazing.
The
It's
mic
amazing.
dropped and we're waiting to hear.
But it's still standing. I don't think it necessarily matters.
I think we're just shocked at how.
That's the point.
That's
Yeah.
That's also good.
The answer is yes. That's the answer. So before Rabbi Riskin told you to be a rabbi,
What's that? What did you say? Good Chaydish. What did you say?
maybe Rabbi Riskin would teach you how to handle these questions. Before-
No. They're good questions. We all want the makor because we want to feel that these Torahs are like, not fairy tales and not just stam hamtzaot and not baba mices or exaggerations. So it's always good. But it's also good to like come to what you said is that be'emes lamito,
I heard something beautiful when someone said, like, asked the Rebbe, are all these stories that you say true? Did they happen? He's like, not all of them happened, but they're all true. And that's
So I'll tell you, one time I was by my Rebbe, Rav Weinberger, on a Friday night in his home for Shabbos dinner, and he was pulling out more, and it was more stories that he loved the kids back and forth. It was when his kids were younger, and each time he was saying a story, and maybe like at one point one of the kids went like that, like, is that true? So at the end, and I didn't know if he heard it or not, but after benching, he said, I just want you to know, I believe be'emunah shlema in every single one of these stories that I share with you. I believe be'emunah shlema in every single one of those stories. But this is a gewalt thing. And Be'ezer Hashem, will find the makor after shiur. And it's not a bad thing to want to have makor at all. Chas v'chalila, I don't want you to think that I'm downplaying it all, but when you learn more Chassidus and it becomes a derech of your life, there's a pachot ha'inyan. Do you know what I mean? It's less the inyan. It's more, what is this doing to my neshama? What is this doing to my neshama? Hearing such words, what does it do to me? What part of me that maybe feels like it's not so important, can I start looking at it and be like, wow, even the little bit of me is important. And that's deeper than any makor I could ever find.
Would it also take away from the point of the limud if we said, this is the makor? I mean, you're always going back and referencing a sefer, some chiddush. So is it any less?
No, but it's a good thing. Listen, it's a good thing to see things traced back. It is a good thing. You should know that many times and I wrote this in the intro to this sefer, that he says, so-and-so says, right? And not just me, other scholars. I would send it around to different scholars, big rabbanim, to help me find the makor in that certain sefer where so-and-so says so-and-so. And quite often, it's not found the way that he's saying it. But so I wrote, it became clear that when he learned and when he heard a certain teaching, that's mamish how he heard it. That's mamish how he heard it. Then you could say the makor of how he heard this is in his lashon. Nachon.
It seems to be a combination of sources from Shirim Rabbah and Echa Rabbah.
Thank you. Ashrecha. Shkoyach. Now, back inside into the point of why we're learning this. Berosh Hashanah katuv ubeshofar gadol yitaka v'kol dmama daka yishama. It's one of my favorite moments of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. One of my favorite. I hear my father has a certain nusach that I hear, even though I don't do that line. While I'm doing a different line, I actually hear my father's nusach. Right? And the great trumpet will be blown, as well as a kol dmama daka. That means like a dmama daka is like even like a silent whisper will be heard too, right? Anachnu nishma et hakol achi pnimi she'afilu אי אפשר להקליט אותו. We'll be hearing such an inner voice that you probably can't even record, meaning you can't even you can't pick it. What's that? You can't put it into anything. It's so right. Called דממה דקה. תקשיבו עד כמה זה עמוק. Listen how deep this is. הייתי אומר שזה הפוך. I would say the opposite. כאשר תוקים בשופר הגדול, יש כל כך הרבה רעש, אתה לא יכול לשמוע כלום. You're blasting the great trumpet, right? So you should say the volume is deafening. That's what it should be like. אבל השופר הקדוש זה כשאתה שומע את התקיעה של השופר הגדול, when you hear the great trumpet, might as well be the last. Who's holding? Shmuel, besides you, Zevi. No? Huh? 3. Right? השופר הקדוש זה כשאתה שומע את התקיעה של השופר הגדול, when you hear the blowing of the great trumpet, פתאום אתה מודע לכל הקולות שיש לקול העמוק ביותר שבתוכך. Suddenly you become aware of all the voices that your inner voice has within you. Oh man, this is so therapeutic.
Nobody like Reb Shlomo.
Even though it's Adar and it's Simchadik, I have to tell you something. A second before I walked into the shiur, I got a message that there's a very, very special woman. Her name is Slotana. She put out the book Lamed Vav. You know that book Lamed Vav, the big red book? She just passed away before shiur. And she was a big neshama. And it says Rav Aaron Leibowitz, if you know Rav Aaron Leibowitz's mother-in-law. And she helped me a lot with these svarim. And there's something that she was able to capture, the way that she put Reb Shlomo's Torahs and stories out there in the world, where minor details that don't necessarily, if you just read any other storybook, you wouldn't pay attention to them. the way that she was able to highlight minor details within the stories and teachings is a wondrous art. It's a wondrous art, and she was able to do it like that. What Reb Shlomo is saying over here to us, to Henishmas Atzura B'tzura Chaim, Litzis Yosher, and all of us.
This is Miriam's mother?
Yeah, Miriam's Ima. The way that this happens over here. The way that it happens over here is that this is a subconscious autobiography piece that he's giving about his own life. How is he able to notice and pay attention to all the schleppers and homeless people? I ever told you the story that 2 years after he died, or 3 years after he died, I was walking on like Broadway and maybe like 82nd or 83rd, and then the shul is 79th, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like a few blocks away. And some homeless brother, an African-American brother, came up to me late at night, asked for something. And the Indian here is not to tell you what kind of tzaddik I am, it's to tell you who this person we're learning from is. I gave it to him, and he said, "You're one of Shlomo's, aren't you?" He said that to me. "You're one of Shlomo's." Who noticed? Who notices? Obviously the Rebbe, Lubavitch Rebbe, Nishmasa Eden, also. Every detail, small things, little things, it was all Hakol Nireh, everything was seen. When your light is really big, when your light is really, really holy, it's not that you have to pay extra attention to small things. You notice the small things like you notice the big things. There's no difference between them. Everything becomes important. That's how you build the Beis HaMikdash. That's how you build the Holy Temple. That's how you really build Am Yisrael as well. Like you really build Am Yisrael. Pitom אתה מודע לכל הקולות שיש לקול העמוק ביותר שבתוכך. And you know what you also notice? You give space to the little kid in you that's still crying over something. That for years the world has told you, grow up, get out of your adolescence, time to be a man. There's a little kid in you that's still crying, Aya. Lama zakarali, why did this happen to me? When your light is really holy, you give space even to the voice of the inner child that is not, doesn't go away when you're 18 or when you get married or when you're a grandfather. It's still there. אתם מבינים חברים, bottom line. אם הלב שלכם באמת קדוש, אני בטוח שתוכלו לקבל את הפרוטות הקטנות. If your heart is really holy, I'm sure that you could receive the small pennies, meaning that you can notice the small pennies, and that the small pennies will actually mean something to you. את הקולות הקטנים שהופכים אותנו מודעים יותר למה חשוב באמת בחיים. Those small voices that change everything, that change us to be much more conscious to what is really important in life. Many years ago, we learned something similar to this, and we tied it to Shalach Manos, Mishloach Manot. Because Mishloach Manot, people lose their mind over it, stress, ideas, themes, all these inyanim, and we learned the Torah of the orange peel, that right, the orange peel, and that Purim is stayed with me forever, because there were like 5 or 6 chevra that came to my house on Purim, and they brought me orange peels as Shalach Manos. And I saved them. Because when you create a Purim energy like that, when you create a makom like that, then people, and listen, let's call it spade for spade here. Like, this is the real emes is that we live in a community where there's a bunch of chevra that Hashem blessed them with kol milei de tuva. A lot of gelt. And they're changing the world with that matana. And there's a bunch of chevra that aren't like that. And you should just know the greatest thing that anyone ever told me that comes to visit is that they have no idea, when they walk into shul from the outside, they have no idea who's on what team. Meaning, chalila, team. It's no teams, but kilu, who's, you know what I mean? They always say that to me. Because sometimes you walk into a shul, you could sniff that guy. Even if he's sitting like 18 rows in the back, it's just about something about the makom, the maimat, I don't know what it is. It's one of the greatest joys, and I'll tell you something even wackier, which is definitely not politically correct and not smart in the long run. Most of the time, I don't know either. I actually don't know. And I told over the years, whoever was with me in the running of the shul, I don't want to know who drops the big one. I don't want to know because I don't want to even have that as a hava mina to think differently and act differently towards things. When I find out it's a beautiful thing that I want to give a karas hatov, but I want it to be that a prutot, not just prutot energy, but muda'ut for prutot energy, a consciousness and awareness for the small things. And when you have that, you build a Mishkan. When you have that, you build a Beit HaMikdash. When you have that, you have a real definition of Ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. Do you think everyone at Har Sinai was holding on the same level? No. Maybe some families got a bit extra when they left Egypt. I don't know. It's usually like that in most societies. There's always going to be someone with more and less. But if there's appreciation to the little, then you really know what you have when you have the big stuff as well. And you really know what you have. It should be from our chelek to be aware and conscious of the small things that our children do, to point out, to make a big deal out of it. Not to say, oh, you're the greatest tzaddik in the world, but to point out, to notice those small things so that when they grow up, they also carry those eyes of consciousness and awareness of the small things. Alavai like that, it'll be a march towards Purim like we never had before in our lives. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.